Hey, what's going on, everybody? With season 4 just a little over a week away, I wanted to come and give you guys these leveling builds that I created during the PTR. So I went through and I tested every single Necromancer skill that's in the game. I probably made 15 different Necromancers so I could start off with each individual core skill, testing the leveling speed so I can get to you guys the most accurate information as far as leveling. So realistically, you cannot have a one build fits all to make it all the way to 100 the fastest. So I actually broke this up into two builds, which is a 1 to 50 and a 50 to 100. So if you actually want to do the capstone beforehand, I would switch to the second build as soon as you go to do the capstone. Do the capstone in the second build because it's actually going to more empower your minions and less be empowering you, meaning that your minions can basically just go in through and solo the dungeon for you as you just kind of tag along for the ride and dodge mechanics on boss fights. That's all you have to really do in the actual capstone dungeon. So for the first part, you're going to do in World Tier 2 because it got the 50% additional bonus experience for being a World Tier 2. So just ignore World Tier 1, go straight to World Tier 2, and you're going to be having a blast with this build anyways. And I have a full leveling tree in here already built out exactly where to put your points as you get them. So you don't even have to worry about that. First off, you're going to do Skeletal Warriors number 2 so that whenever you crit, your Skeletal Warriors are going to get a guaranteed crit for 50% bonus crit damage. You're going to do Skeletal Mages number 1 because we are using Blood Surge because Blood Surge is still the best for all the way up until the first capstone dungeon. It's going to make it so you deal bonus damage for each active Shadow Mage that you have. And then we're going to go for Golem number 1, which is going to make it so Golem does a huge slam for 154% bonus damage. It's a pretty big chunky damage, and actually in the end game, if you wanted to become a Golemmancer, you could temper your gear accordingly and make it so that Golem is doing over 1 billion damage with that slam. It's pretty cool, kind of niche, and outside of that, window of him doing that damage, you don't really do a lot of damage. So I wouldn't recommend it. It is a really cool playstyle you could do for one-shotting bosses, though. All right, so these are just aspects I threw in here that to look out for as you're going. Whenever I was leveling my characters on the PTR, I made sure not to use any Codex of Power that I didn't have drop while leveling, so it would be as fair as possible. And these are the aspects you're going to want to look out for. Aspect of Occult Dominion makes it so you have +2 Skeletal Warriors and Skeletal Mages. Any summoner build, this is a no-brainer. This is the first aspect you want to look out for because it's going to give you 4 additional minions for free. Aspect of Heart and Bones makes so you and your minions take increased damage reduction, so a little bit of survivability. Blood Getter is going to make so your skeletal priests empower you as well at up to 70% effectiveness, effectively just boosting your damage for free. Reanimation makes it so once your minion's been alive for at least 10 seconds, they just get 40% damage increase. And then finally, Unyielding Commander, whenever you pop Army of the Dead, 100% increased damage, and they take 90% reduced damage. Ignore the gems, I just put them in there just to have them. Realistically, if you get any gems that are beneficial, throw them into your stuff while you're leveling, but you're going to be changing the gear so often it doesn't really matter all that much. Onto the skill tree. Again, by default, the leveling path is going to be off. I've tried so many times to save it with the leveling path on. It just doesn't want to. But if you have the Mobalytics app already installed, you can just hold tab, hit Q, pull up the build, and you can actually follow along with these as you are leveling, so you don't ever have to worry about where to put your points. I have it in order for you. And the reason that all of these are in the specific order that they are is all based off of what level you're going to be at what certain break points. So as we get down through these, you'll see that you don't take some of the points you would think you would want to until much later. So grab 2 points into anything here. It's going to get replaced with by the time you hit about level 5. So that part doesn't really matter all that much. So grab 2 points up here, grab Blood Surge, Enhanced Blood Surge, and then Supernatural Blood Surge. This one's going to make it so that you're going to do increased damage whenever you're above 50% Fortify for your maximum life, which we're going to get from Necrotic Carapace later on. 2 more points into Blood Surge, which will finally unlock this tree down here. Put 3 points into Skeletal Warrior Mastery, and then come back up and put 2 more points into Blood Surge to cap it out. Now this tree down here will be unlocked. You're going to grab 1 point into Iron Maiden and then Enhanced Iron Maiden. This is going to make it so this is now your new essence generator, and whatever your original essence generator was, take it off your bar and replace it with Iron Maiden. You just curse a group of mobs and then they're just going to blow up your essence orb with a whole bunch of free essence. So That just makes things super, super convenient and super fast, especially since Blood Surge uses so much essence. 3 points into Death's Approach, so we get the 12% movement speed. Get from pack to pack faster, so you can level that much faster. Come on down, grab Corpse Tendrils all the way up to Plague Corpse Tendrils. And it's going to make it so once you pull them in and stun them, they're also going to get vulnerable for 3 seconds. Really nice for leveling up. And also it's going to put them all together so that all of them get hit with your Blood Surge. 1 point Necrotic Carapace, and this is where you're going to get that Fortify to make it so that your Blood Surge does that much increased damage. We're going to come back up, grab 2 points into Amplified Damage, and then we're going to put 1 point into Army of the Dead. You will, at this point, be level 15, and it's time to unlock your mages. So you're going to put your next 3 points into your mages, and then we're going to come down and finish off the Army of the Dead tree. Put 2 points into Inspiring Leader, 2 points into Hellbent Commander, and then your final point into Kaelin's Edict. Now you'll be level 25. You're going to do your Golem quest, and you're going to put your next 3 points into Golem Mastery. Put your third and final point into Hellbent Commander, 2 into Bonded in Essence. Then we're going to come all the way back up to our core skills. Let me scroll this down a little bit. And we are going to go 1 point into Unliving Energy to unlock Imperfectly Balanced. This is going to give your Blood Surge an additional 15% multiplicative increased damage. Now we're going to come down here, put 1 point into Grim Harvest so we can get 3 points into Fueled by Death to get another 9% increased damage after consuming a corpse. We're going to put 3 points into Spiked Armor for the 15% additional bonus armor to our minions and ourselves. Then we're going to put 1 point into Gruesome Mending, and then finally the remaining 3 points into Coalesced Blood, so that Blood Surge is going to do 18% increased damage. Now this is all the way up to level 50. I did the first capstone dungeon in my mid-30s. You don't have to do it in your mid-30s, but you definitely can if you want, all the way up until level 50. Completely up to you, whatever feels comfortable for you. Now, once you do decide to go to the capstone dungeon, I would highly suggest switching to this build. All right, for the second build, this one is a really good build, and it's focused solely on your minions doing the damage, not so much you doing the damage. So for our minions right off the bat, we're going to go Skeletal Reapers number 2 to have them carve off a corpse for free. We're going to go Skeletal Mages number 2 so that they fire an additional Shadow Bolt every third attack. And we're going to sacrifice our Iron Golem. Sorry, buddy, but you got to go. We need that sweet, sweet critical strike damage. Now onto the aspects. And I actually do have the stat priorities of the gear on here. So if you go and you look, all of the gear is filled out of what kind of stat you're looking for. If you do get a Ring of Mendelin, obviously drop the aspect of the Damned and pick that up. It will be way more beneficial for you. But I do have everything on here of what you're looking for. This is a rough guide. You don't need specifically this, but this is generally what you're going to be looking for to maximize the damage for this build. But again, this is a leveling build. It's not like your full-on end game build. I will be making guides for those once the season does launch. But again, we're going to go Occult Dominion. Same as before, increase your Mage's Warriors by 2. Aspect of Might, you get damage reduction after using a basic skill. Aspect of Reanimation, again, increases your minions' damage after they've been alive for 10 seconds. Hardened Bones, you and your minions gain damage reduction. Bloodgetter's Aspect on the boots, you could actually go and move this to a movement speed one if you wanted. We are focused more on our minions doing damage rather than our damage. Although from what I was testing, it seemed like Bloodgetter's Aspect worked for your minions as well. So like it would empower your minions, but it also empower you, and it would increase your damage, and then that increased damage would now carry over to minions, like increasing their damage even further. It's really weird how it was working on the PTR. So I don't know if that got changed between then and now. I guess we will see whenever the actual season comes out. But if not, then you can actually just switch it to like Ghostwalker or something. And any other movement speed boot enchant would be nice. Aspect of Grasping Veins, increase the critical strike chance and damage after they've been corpse tendrilled. Unyielding Commander again for the Army of the Dead damage. Aspect of the Damned to increase shadow damage to enemies affected by a curse, which we're going to have Decrepify, and you're going to want to open your fights with Decrepify so your minions go in first. Sacrilegious Soul is super easy to farm off of Varshan, so get this as soon as you can and then just upgrade it later on whenever you need a higher item level 1. And then finally, Aspect of the Frenzied Dead so that your minions gain additional attack speed. Especially if you can swap out this for a Ring of Mendelin, then you can actually have this rocking the ring more often because it's now off of attacks instead of a lucky hit. Onto the skill tree. Decompose up to Acolytes Decompose. This is going to make them vulnerable for 4 seconds for free. I'm a huge fan of Decompose. You can go with whatever basic skill you want. Decompose is just my favorite because it frees a corpse, it does a explosion of damage, and it makes everything vulnerable that got hit by that explosion. For me, it just feels really nice. Also, you open the fight with Decrepify to get your minions to go in. You use Acolytes Decompose to spawn a corpse, make everything vulnerable. Then you can Corpse Tendril to drag everything on top of that. They're stunned. They're vulnerable even longer because of the Corpse Tendril, and your mages can just cleave through everything. It's so nice. Blight over to Supernatural Blight to increase you and your minions damage by 20% for anything that's standing within Blight. So if you Corpse Tendril everything onto itself, all of those mobs will be standing within Blight because they're going to be stunned on top of it. It's super nice to have. Now, you can go Sever if you want to do more damage yourself. And if you do want to go Sever, obviously take these points out and you're going to want to go to Supernatural Sever. So you do increase damage for each minion you have. And then you're going to want to have to take some points from somewhere. And to be honest, I would take probably Crippling Darkness out. I would take out the remaining point in Bonded in Essence. And then you could probably take out another point out of Necrotic Carapace. Throw those in, and then you have 5 points into Sever. I like Blight because it increases my minions' damage rather than mine. This is what I wanted to focus on. Alright, grab Spiked Armor, Skeletal Warrior Mastery, 1 point in Grim Harvest, 3 points of Fueled by Death just to increase the damage, which is going to increase your minions' damage. 3 points in Death's Embrace, just so if mobs do come to hit you, you take a little bit less damage. It's just a nice little layer of defense. 3 points in Amplify Damage, because we're going to be cursing everything. Decrepify to Abhor Decrepify, so we have the CDR because we want to get Army of the Dead back really fast. 3 points in Death's Approach for the movement speed, 3 points in the Skeletal Mage Mastery. Corpse Tendrils up to Plague Corpse Tendrils again for the vulnerability. Necrotic Carapace is giving us Fortified, just another layer of defense. Technically don't need this if you play really passive and really far back, but I just feel like having the extra layer of defense, especially whenever you get into like the higher pit levels, it just feels better for me. Also, for the higher pit levels, you might want to think about taking Bone Storm for the barrier, but that's a whole nother build guide. This again is just for leveling. Reaper's Pursuit, Gloom, and Terror max them out. Those are all just free shadow damage. 1 point in Crippling Darkness is just in case you need to stagger bosses. It's a nice little lucky hit. Realistically, you don't technically need this. It's completely up to you if you actually want to use that or not. And if not, you can literally just put it anywhere else. You can actually lower the cooldown on Corpse Tendrils or come up here and put another point into Grim Harvest. You get a little more essence back. Up to you. Grab Army of the Dead all the way up to Supreme, just because if you do happen to die, this will spawn all of your minions for you for free. It's very rare that you die. This is a very hardcore friendly build. 3 points in Inspiring Leader, 3 points in Hellbent Commander, 1 point in Bonded in Essence. You can go Shadow Blight if you want, but it's really not as good as Kalen's Edict just because we're trying to get as much attack speed as possible. Especially if you do manage to get a Ring of Mendelin, you definitely want Kalen's Edict. You can play with Shadow Blight for now if you don't have the Ring of Mendelin. Now onto the Paragon board. Now, I did a full 225 Paragon board for you guys to maximize as much damage as possible. So for the first board, you're going to want Amplify. It's going to boost your blue and yellow nodes within the radius. So it's going to give you more armor, more damage, and more damage, and more damage, and more int. It's huge. This is the best glyph that you could possibly put in here. Second board we're actually going to do is Wither. It's going to increase shadow damage by a lot. Now, Season 4 brings in the whole new masterworking and tempering system. And just an example, here is an item that I made. I posted this on Reddit back when? I don't even know. Doesn't say. Oh, 28 days ago. So this is one that I made on the PTR. It dropped with a greater affix already on it, and I managed to triple masterwork int. And this is on a focus. It's just an offhand. 227 int. Now, if you have the Sacrilegious Soul and the Ring of Mendelin, you can't really do anything with those for as far as tempering or anything like that. So technically, if we were to run those 2 rings, which is what my goal is anyways, that would leave us 8 items that you could technically get a greater affix int and triple masterwork if you spend enough materials and time farming, that you could essentially have, hold on, I did a calculator on all this stuff, 1816 int. Now, we have 697 int here, which I also did on the calculator. So you add on the 697, it brings up to 2500 intellect. Now, if we divide that by 60, because the way that Wither works is you get 4% bonus for each 60 intelligence you have, that brings us down to 41.8. And then we times that by 4, which means you're going to get 167.5 bonus damage at 42 per, actually just it'll probably round up because that's how Blizzard works. 43% chance to increase bonus damage at 167.5% damage rate increase. Wither just got insane in season 4. So we went Wither board number 2 because this is just insane. In this, we put in the Scourge Glyphs. This is going to increase you and your minions' damage to any enemies affected by shadow damage over time. Blight puts on a shadow damage over time dot, and then everything is now getting increased damage to it. Works great on bosses since bosses don't generally move too much, and anytime you have corpse tendril a whole bunch of mobs in and you shoot out a Blight, they're now all being affected by this. Huge, huge, huge damage. Board number 3 is actually going to be Flesh Eater, so that you get the 40% increased damage after consuming corpses. We're actually going to put in the Darkness Glyph here to increase shadow damage for you and your minions. Third board, we're actually going to come back down to the Wither board and branch off to the left. We're going to grab Scent of Death so that you either get damage reduction or damage increase depending on if you are close to or far away from corpses. And here we're going to throw in the control glyph so that you and your minions do 20% increased damage after they've been corpse tendrilled. So everything kind of just like synergizes really well. You corpse tendril them, you blight them, now they get the increased damage here, you get increased damage here, you get increased damage here just for doing shadow damage. So everything just kind of works together. And then our final board is actually going to be the Cult Leader board, but we're not actually going all the way up to Cult Leader. We're going to come up here and we're going to put in the Dead Razor glyph. This is going to give us our minions additional damage reduction as well as additional damage output. Now our minions are getting our armor as well as our magic resistance. However, just increasing their damage reduction is just flat raw damage reduction. It's kind of nice, gives them a little bit of extra survivability. And then you have 2 options. You can either come over here to do the skeletal mage damage, which I'm focused on mage damage on my build. So that's what I did. Or you can just come up here to this node cluster here and just grab straight up raw minion damage. And this will boost all of your minions, not just your mages. I chose mages because that's how my build is designed. Come back over here and we look on any of our gear. We're going to see chance for skeletal mages to attack twice. Ranks to skeletal mage mastery. Ranks to skeletal mage mastery. Ranks to skeletal mage mastery. So these, each rank is, what is it, 3, I think? I think you can get it up to 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Plus, in your tree, you already have 3 points. So now you're at 18. And you get 20% per, which is 190% increased life and damage of your skeletal mages. Your mages are going to be absolutely nutty. Alright guys, so that is the 2 builds that you're going to want to run for leveling up in Season 4. Now, unfortunately, there is no one build that is just perfect from level 1 all the way to level 100. Any guides you see out there that are telling you so, they're not accurate. Any of the people who have sped run leveling a Necromancer from like in the previous seasons, it's always Blood Surge for the first like half of the levels, and then most of the time they had always switched over to Bone Spear. However, we no longer need to worry about Bone Spear because we have minions. So let's boost our minion damage with Blight. Now, you can also run Sever. I did a few different builds where I was running Sever in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 on a couple of the Necromancers I leveled on the PTR, and it was extremely fun. So if you want to be doing more damage yourself, run Sever. If you want your minions to be dealing more damage, run Blight. That's really what it boils down to. But overall, it's going to be an amazing season for anyone who plays Necromancer. So hope you guys enjoyed the build. If you did, let me know down below in the comments. I will see you guys in Season 4, and I'll be putting out some endgame builds for you guys as soon as I possibly can. Have a nice day.